That's very unusual in SaaS, right?
Yeah.
There's no end of the month discounts. And everybody that I spoke with said that you're crazy. You can't do that.
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. We are stoked today. We have a legend with us. We have Alina Vandenberghe, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of ChiliPiper, which she started and created in 2016. And as you all know, we are huge ChiliPiper fans. It is the pipeline conversion platform for B2B marketing, sales, and ops teams. But what's really interesting, Alina is a born entrepreneur. She started her first company before high school, before she really even knew what entrepreneurship was, selling lipstick door to door. Realizing it was low margin, she decided to go back to school, get a master's in computer science as well. And after building mobile products that were keynoted by none other than herself on stage, she decided to take her product management talents to B2B software solutions. And the rest, well, we're going to dive into that a little bit right now. Alina, thanks so much for joining us.
Lucky me.
Thank you for joining us, Alina. So the first thing we'd like to talk with founders about, and you're a little bit further along in your journey. Adam and I are big fans of ChiliPiper, and I remember when you guys were just starting up. I think I saw a picture of you guys in Europe somewhere with the big blow up things at the pool. But we're curious on the origin story. Like, what did ChiliPiper start? Why did you guys start it? And like emotionally, why did that drive you to want to build ChiliPiper?
I will start making a reference to that pool that you mentioned. It was, I think, our third company trip. And every year we take everybody, because we're remote and we're in different countries right now. We were in 40 countries. And every year we take people to different locations. At that time, it was Ibiza. And
exactly.
It was, I don't even know how many of us we were at that time, maybe 30. And we took everybody to the closing of Pasha. the closing of clubs in Ibiza. It was a Pasha one. I have very fond memories of it. Yep. We did some other crazy adventures, but that was not my goal. That I didn't plan to do parties every year with my team. That's not why I started. I started because I was pissed off that I was working for this CIO at some point that had a $10 billion budget for software, and one of the projects was like $100 million Siebel implementation. I don't know if you all remember Siebel.
Oof! Oh, I remember Siebel. I worked in healthcare. Siebel was,
Siebel was a big deal at that time, and then we started implementing Salesforce, and we were doing all these crazy software projects. And I said, I can build better. I can do better. Obviously, it was gutsy of me to say that. I was like this person from Romania who had just landed in New York. But I felt strongly that the software in revenue teams can improve, that there are too many things that make no sense, that revenue teams should be focusing on what they're doing best, which is connecting with their customers and having these interactions with customers, and everything else just be in the background, and we shouldn't care about it.
Awesome.
I agree with you. We talk often about if it's not a revenue producing activity, I don't want my revenue personnel doing it. Like, let's get rid of all this admin stuff, booking meetings, looking for time to book meetings, and everything else that goes along with that. So I love that. And we'll talk about Ibiza at a later time. I'm going to Ibiza in a couple months. And now that I know that you did that, I will certainly reach out for some tips. But that is not the purpose of today's show. When you start a company, and when you and Nicholas started ChiliPiper, you guys started it together, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's a whole separate thing I want to get into as well, because I've worked for companies with husband and wife founders also. But when you start a company, there's a lot of assumptions out there about, like, you have to do this and make sure you do it this way. And Alina, don't you dare do that. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about some of those assumptions or like best practices that you just chose to ignore and be like, F this, we're not going to follow this script and we're going to build this our way.
Oh, there's a lot of that at ChiliPiper.
Pick the one that stands out most. And I love that there's a lot of that.
When that founders may be like, you know what, I've gotten bad advice. This is really good advice, and I would like to see if I can implement something that ChiliPiper's done.
So Nicola, my co-founder, is a serial entrepreneur. Me, it's my first venture, so I have no preconceived ideas of what companies should be run. However, he had been at it for a while, and he has a lot of good practices that come with it. The fact that he has a lot of experience has helped me a huge lot, especially when it comes to operation, when it comes to legal, when it comes to processes, when it comes to management. I come from a very different background than he does. I've worked in corporate America. He hasn't, and I have been seeing a very different set of rules of how companies are operated. I also worked for like publicly traded companies and for a large private one as well as Bloomberg, and the best practices that we've borrowed across different places where we either incorporated or we've worked at has helped play a big role in how we set up things. Also, our personalities played a big role in how we set up things. I'm Romanian, he's French, we're both American citizens, so we borrowed the cultural things that come with it. I would say that something that was unexpected for our industry was the fact that we put our pricing from the beginning transparent, and we've never done discounts. And you all know that is
just wrote that down.
That's very unusual in SaaS, right?
Yeah.
There's no end of the month discounts, and everybody that I spoke with said that you're crazy, you can't do that. How else am I going to close that deal? How am I going to incentivize and push the deal through? And I said, look, I've been on the other side. I've been a buyer, and I hated discounts because I didn't know if I was getting a better discount than the other guy. And was it because I was bigger? Was it because I was smaller? Was it because my hair is brown? Like what? How would they calculate this pricing? It didn't make sense. I felt like I was getting a worse experience. And I said, I do not want to give that experience to my buyers. I was very strong on that.
Incentivize on value, folks. I love that.
Incentivize on value. And to these days, people don't believe it, even though we've been having this practice for 8 years. It's ingrained in all my contracts. Like I have the big guys that are public traded companies that say in my contract that if I ever give discount to anyone, they were going to get a discount too. So my entire revenue is going to go down if I ever discount. I'm very stuck with my my philosophy. But to these days, VP of sales, they love a good deal. So they wait until the end of the month thinking that there's some miracle happening. And many of my deals still close on those days. It makes no sense.
Well, and I think it smooths out your revenue, right? Like you can like really smooth your revenue out. And like we as software providers in the SaaS world, we've taught people how to buy. Like for such a long period of time, wait till the end of the year, wait till the end of the quarter, and flipping that upside down. I love that because I think more people need to do that because you're trying to push everything to the first of the year, but everyone knows that you'll discount at the end. So
it also gives you a ton of credibility, right? Like there's a credibility factor of, listen, the price is the price and it's this way for a reason. If that is an issue, like, fine. We haven't shown you value if you're not comfortable with the price, but the price isn't going to change. We're not going to come to you on the 30th and be like, hey, Alina, like if you sign, I'll give you 10% off. I love your pricing philosophy. And I wish everyone in SaaS and beyond would adopt it. It's one of the reasons I'm a huge Tesla fan. And one of the reasons I happen to like them is the fact that the price is the price. Like you're not negotiating it. Sorry.
I love that. I wish all companies would just have it their app on websites, transparent, and you always have a formula that you can make public to everybody. But founders are afraid and they want to test things out. I get it. And again, it's not for everybody. It's just fitted very much my personality.
Yeah. We talk with a lot of founders that deal with setbacks as you're going through this because you kind of a couple steps ahead, a couple steps back. And so talk to us a little bit or talk to the audience a little bit about a moment that you had a setback that actually set you up for success in the future.
About the pricing or something different?
Just anything that you had from a setback. It doesn't have to.
Oh my gosh, I've had so many times where I almost went under. The reality is that if you don't have beliefs that are stronger than everybody else around you, you get tripped. And it's so easy to get tripped. There's so many moments where you will get down. You have a big customer churning. You have a big contract that's about to close that you put so many high hopes on, and it's not going to happen. I believe that if I would have put all my baskets in one egg, and I would have had this kind of dependency on big things to happen, or on certain employees to make a certain kind of impact, I think I would have been dead by now from a company standpoint of view.
Sure.
But I diversify a lot on how I go to market. I diversify a lot on how our revenue streams are coming, of how we're providing service into our ecosystem and into our community. So that's a big part of it. And also the beliefs. I have such a strong belief into the future and what it is that I'm doing, that it's so hard for me to get like off my axis with all sorts of things that might be happening around me. And I can give you an example. At one point, one of our large customers, didn't pay their bills in time, for whatever reason. And I just didn't have money to pay my employees. I just didn't have cash to pay their salaries. And that was maybe like year two. And I paid them in stock. I just said, this month I have no cash, I'll pay you in stock. I don't believe that this is going to continue, but this is my option this month. This is all I can do. Well, I can tell you, those employees that get paid in stock at that time, right now they're very, very, very happy. They're very happy.
Blessing in disguise, right?
Yeah. It could have gone in another direction, but it was a moment where I just felt I had no choice.
I love that. I think not enough people will think out of the box, and it shows a belief from the employee perspective, that top belief. Like you were saying something like you can't get shaken off your beliefs. So you set beliefs, you can't get shaken off them. And that showed in that tough moment where you didn't have necessarily the money to pay the employees, but they believed in you, they believed in ChiliPiper, and they're like, okay, we're going to believe in it. Now they're super happy that they did because of where you guys have grown and what you guys have done. It's a good mechanism for people, or a good idea for people to understand. It's not a straight line. There's no straight lines that happen in the startup world. And sometimes you got to bob and weave. I always say to people when they talk about wanting to go in the startup world, and I said, it's not for everybody. You can't just decide one morning you wake up and you want to go into the startup world. It sounds glorious. And then you get into a situation like this and you got to really make some decisions.
And it's not about the idea either. Everybody can copy what we do, and it's not at all about the idea of any product can be copied these days with AI. And it's very much about the motions to push things through and execute, and the beliefs around them, of course.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's so many, not even ChiliPiper, but there's so many copycat products out there, and it's not 100% the product. It's the team. It's the go-to-market motion. There's so many things that differentiate you. I love what you spoke about, and I wrote it down, about beliefs being stronger than everybody else, because I think that when I look at founders that I've worked with or worked for or am friends with, the ones that I think execute really well and the ones that I'm fondest of are the ones that have those strong beliefs. So I admire that, and I admire the story about taking care of your employees. One of the things that has always fascinated me about ChiliPiper versus a lot of other companies out there is you're fully remote, right? You have people, and I think we talked about it before we started. I think you said 40 some odd countries, if memory serves me correct. And I think, COVID made remote work a lot more palatable to people than post-COVID. Now it's you have Zoom of all people saying everyone has to go back to the office. And you guys have held steadfast on, we are a remote company. Talk to us a little bit about that decision from the beginning to now, because I love it. And I'd love to know a little bit about the mindset of why did we say, hey, we're going to be remote first? People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part, gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you, no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com.
At the beginning, when we started ChiliPiper and we had employees in other places, it was a necessity for us to hire outside of New York, because we couldn't afford people in New York. actually we didn't pay our salaries for like the first 2.5 years. And another reason for it is because I really love when cultures blend. I love traveling, and I love to see and learn from others. And there's something beautiful when you get people that that think so differently. You get something out of it that is a lot more refined, and you get a lot better at collaboration, and then you get a lot better at crafting the right pitch for your audience in front of you, because your audience is also going to be very diverse. If I were to hire everybody from New York with a specific accent, with everybody's the same background, it would have been a lot harder to resonate with someone in San Francisco, even because even the coasts are so different, right? Yeah. And that's the reason why I love this blend. But it was also a necessity. Now that companies have to plan for efficiencies, and they get a lot more careful with their costs, the fact that I'm in so many places with salaries that are so different than that of New York allows me to withstand the storm. And that's the reason why I'm profitable right now, and I don't bleed like many other companies. So from a financial standpoint of view, it makes a lot of sense. From a culture standpoint of view, it's very hard. Like, it's very, very hard to connect with people on little squares at your desk all day long. It's very, very risky from a mental well-being as well, because if you're by yourself, a lot of times, you've seen it in COVID, you start losing your mind, and you start like thinking about all sorts of crazy things. So we've put all sorts of things in place to make sure that those kind of things don't happen. Obviously, everybody's different, and we're only made for a specific kind of employee, and we hire for those kind of employees that are happy to travel, that are happy to meet other people around them, because it's really tough to be alone. When it comes to revenue teams, the reality is that quota matters and results is that matter. So the hours are completely irrelevant in a revenue facing role. So it's to me it's a very easy way to manage it. It's very easy to manage it.
Yeah, it's super interesting. One of my very first startups that I worked with was out of Rotterdam in Holland, and what I really appreciated was the amount of diversity that you end up getting in that conversation. And you did take a huge risk, because this was pre-COVID when you guys started, totally remote. This wasn't happening in the world, like in the B2B tech world. It was like, come have offices, let's play ping pong, let's like have all the food, all of those
beer
types
on
of
tap.
things. And yeah, beer on, and you guys totally did it a different way. And I think that culture drives up to the beliefs that you guys had from the top. And I think it's very difficult for people to drive through a culture that isn't coming from the top. So tell us a little bit about the leadership evolution that you've had, that it drove that culture into the organization. So I'm sure you started one way, thinking that you're going to have this leadership, and then as remote happened and then COVID happened. So talk to us a little bit about your leadership evolution as it relates to culture.
So I'm a believer that culture is one of the key components to success in any company. And the reason for it is because in order for you to get the results that you want, the most important advocates in front of your customers, in front of your prospects, are your people. And if your people don't have a conviction and they don't have certain kind of beliefs around your product and what it is that they're selling, you're just going to fail. You're just going to fail. And people are, especially these days, are not motivated by just getting a paycheck. That's just not how it works, right? And yes, it's nice to get the bills paid, and of course you want your family to be cared for and have a roof over your head. But it's hard to just get motivated by that. You become a robot, a machine that has no presence into the equation. So we have created some aspects in our culture that are probably unusual, that do not come natural for most founders. I'll give you some examples.
I was just going to say, tell me more.
I'll give you some examples. I do not care about retention. Like, I really don't care about retention. Like, if people want to leave ChiliPiper, I will be the ones to help them. And the reason why I don't care about retention, and I know it sounds counterintuitive, is because you don't want to keep people chained in jobs that make them unhappy. You want people to thrive. You want the best path for them. And from the beginning, when we hire them, we try to understand what really drives them, what really motivates them, where do they really want to go to be able to provide for them in that future. If someone is into sales as a transition, but what they really want to be is a race car driver, you're not going to want that person to stay in sales. You want to help them get to their dream, right? Because that's how they're going to feel that motivation. And everybody is different. Everybody is different, and everybody wants to be exposed to certain things, to different skill sets, and so forth. So we really care for that, their own self-development and their own path to thriving in unusual ways. And because they also get a big stock option, a big chunk of stock options when they go through, they feel a lot more involved into the process. They feel a lot more involved into the outcome. And because we've had secondaries, and a lot of them actually participated in them, and they can see their colleagues taking on those aspects, it feels very different, because it feels like we're all in it, trying to get to the results we want, as opposed to just me trying to steer the ship. I would go banana to try to steer the ship alone, right?
I love what you said about, and I've never worded it the same way, but when you talk about getting people where they want to go, and Dale and I have had this conversation, and if memory serves me correctly, in our book on leadership, we actually talk about this, and what differs a manager from a leader. Your job as a leader is to get people where they want to go. And if being a salesperson right now, listen, I want you to do your best and 100% while you're here and, be all in. But if you want to go to marketing, or if you want to go to product, or to your case, if you want to go be a race car driver, when you're ready to make that shift, my job as a leader is to do everything I can to prepare you for that role and to get you there, even if that means you're leaving my organization. So I love that dearly. One of the things that stood out to me is you work with your husband. You're both, co-CEOs, co-founders. I've worked with teams that have been husband and wife, brother and sister. And transparently, I haven't had the best experiences. But I know a lot of folks who work at ChiliPiper, and no one has ever said anything negative about it. So I'm assuming you guys are doing it right. Walk me through that dynamic. Like, that's got to be, I would imagine that's hard. So my wife works across the house from me, and we don't talk to each other all day. I'd imagine working together is difficult. How do you guys find the balance to, number one, run a company together, and number two, when you're out to dinner on a Saturday night, hopefully not talk about ChiliPiper?
I can see why you've had a bad experience. I can imagine that myself, I would have a hard time working for a husband and a wife founder, because most times what happens is that they might have different opinions from one another, and you go to one and you get some direction, and then you go to another one and you get something different. And it's tough, because you want to make both your bosses happy. And, if mom and dad argue about whether you should have broccoli or chocolate for dinner, it's really tough to, as
chocolate.
a child,
always chocolate.
It's hard to navigate that. In our case, I think that the reason why it works, and I think that the reason why it's different than most couples, and the reason why I would love to work for us as a couple in that dynamic, is because whenever we have a difference of opinion, we don't put the employee in the position to try to navigate between the differences of opinion. And all our decision making is written in writing. So it's very, very unusual. We have a document that, so since the beginning of time, for 8 years now, we have a document for every single decision we have made to date. Every go-to-market, every naming, every pricing, every anything that you can think of when it comes to culture, like even time off and things of this nature. And it forces you to be a lot more diligent about why certain things go in a certain way, gather data, see a lot more perspectives, because all these decisions are transparent to everybody in the company. It forces you to get a lot more input when these decisions are made, and a lot more transparent about all the nuances that comes with the decision making, because you're never going to have like perfect decisions. You're only going to have parts of the data. You only have to make some assumptions about things, and putting things on paper and putting all the options on paper make it so different. even if you are, imagine that you are a child and you have your mother and father arguing about chocolate or broccoli. Imagine if you were to put it on paper and say, well, this is what broccoli brings, this is what chocolate brings. There's endorphins with cacao beans, and then there's like broccoli and antioxidants, blah, blah, blah. You get a lot better at understanding why. You even as a child or as a parent, you understand why you're pushing one way or another, and getting as much data as you can before you move forward is a very, very different process.
Yeah, I can imagine. And it's good that you keep those differences out of the culture, because once again, coming back to the beliefs, if you sit at the belief system, then you can kind of push everything down from there. So
And you put everything in writing as well is different.
What you just said is so true, because I could literally close my eyes and remember, and it doesn't matter where, but going to one party being told one thing, then the other immediately sending an email saying, no, what so-and-so said isn't right. You're going to do it this way. What do you do? And putting the employee in the middle is like, listen, agree to disagree. Everyone could disagree, but don't ever put like, it was such an uncomfortable situation. It's the reason I left. I love the documentation. Yeah, love it. Sorry, Dale.
No, it's good stuff. So, Alina, we believe in giving more than we receive at Revenue Reimagined, and you've been grateful and gracious enough to provide something to the audience. So let them know.
Yes, when you reach out to ask me if there's something that I want to give back, I was both nervous and excited. Excited because I have the same belief that you keep on giving to the community, and even if in the moment there's nothing to get back, there's always opportunities to help further down the line. Terrified is because it's our first time that we're doing a PLG motion, and it's the first time that we have a free product. We are testing our first generation of that. It's called Chili Cow. The product is specifically made for sales. And it has all the things that as a sales rep you want to integrate as part of your meetings booked process. One, you don't have your prospect fill out any forms. They just book the meeting. Two, you don't ask the prospect to go back and forth, figure out what their calendar looks like, what your calendar looks like, and have that special sauce in it. We also do something that's probably unusual in the space. If you have one-on-ones with your team, or if you have any kind of team meetings, those meetings can be pushed back to meet a client, so that you give them the local treatment. Obviously, we have our secret sauce when it comes to no-shows. We continue to optimize for best no-shows in the industry, and some other things that I let you discover on your own. Because I'm very nervous around it. Anybody who tries it, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn and DM me and tell me all the things that you hated, all the things that you loved, so that we can improve it and make it better. I do not want to announce it broader than your podcast, because I want to make sure that we get to a point where I'm ready to go to market.
Ready
Yes.
to launch.
Yeah.
And as someone who was part of the early beta, like, go check this out. Provide feedback. Super, super cool. Alina, one of the things that I think a lot of founders struggle with is that balance for growth versus like sustainability, right? Like in a startup world, it's like, we got to grow fast. We got to get the revenue. We got to go hire 187 people and all of these things that you have to do to grow. But at the same time, you have to be sustainable and nimble and agile. Talk to us, like, is there a single or maybe one or two like really hard choices where you've had to manage that growth versus sustainability challenge?
I was lucky enough to be in both stages of that. We were both bootstrapped and we were both thrown cash at at some point, with the goal to grow as fast as possible. And I saw the benefits of both. I saw that when I was bootstrapped, I had a lot more accountability for every dollar that went out, and everything had to be very well accounted for. Whereas when we got a lot of cash, we would take a lot bigger risks and we grew a lot faster because we were able to have more coverage. Now that we're in the middle, and we are still in a place of growth, and we are also now in a place where we don't bleed cash and we're profitable back. I would say that it has to do a lot with discipline of operations, making sure that no time is spent on things that are not conducive to revenue giving activities like we talked about earlier. The fact that AI can remove a lot of friction in the process as well for a lot of sales, especially in the research part. Like, you don't need to do research anymore. Like, all these autonomous AI bots can bring everything that you need. And we can get back to focusing on our humanity. That to me is a very beautiful place to be. I can sleep at night. I don't have to worry about things, and I can finally focus on the type of things for each one of our employees, and for myself included, on building the skill sets that are really impactful in our development.
I love it. I love it. Let's, as we wrap it up, we have a few more minutes. If you're cool, that we would love to throw some rapid fire at you.
All right, let's do it.
All right. As this one's near and dear to my heart as well, favorite travel destination?
I believe South Korea. Yeah, South Korea.
Nice.
Very interesting.
But I'm
Very
going
nice.
next week to Taiwan and Hong Kong, so they might get. I don't know.
Have
I
you not
love
been
it.
to Hong Kong?
I've not been to Hong Kong yet.
It's very New York like, and I'm not sure Taiwan, but Hong Kong's very New York. If you weren't in tech, what profession would you be in?
Peace, bringing peace,
Yeah,
Love that.
being probably in some war zones of some kind, trying to get people to talk to each other.
the Peace
Be-
Corps. The Peace
Peace
I
Corps.
love it. I absolutely love that answer. Alina, where do you start first, marketing or sales?
Start first. What do you mean?
What comes first? You're building go-to-market, new company. What do you build out first? Is it marketing or is it sales?
So when we started, I was the technical co-founder. My husband was the CRO / president, and it was just 5 of us. We didn't have the luxury of spending money on things that one equates with marketing, such as ads or any direct mail campaigns. However, we would go to every event we could possibly think of, and we would talk to everybody that was in our vicinity about what it is that we were selling. And you can think, well, that's a first touch because it's an event. So I think that the reality is that two of them are too intermingled to differentiate what counts what.
Fair enough.
I love that. I love that. What's one word to describe your startup journey so far?
Wild.
Wild.
All right, last two. Early bird or night owl?
Both.
Ooh. How many hours a night do you sleep?
Sometimes I sleep a lot. Sometimes I sleep like 9 hours, 8 hours. Sometimes I sleep 2.
Oh, wow.
It varies. It fluctuates a lot depending on the things that are on my mind. Sometimes I get very productive at night. Sometimes I get very productive in the morning.
And the time zone that you're in with all the travel.
Yeah.
So we started with Ibiza in the blow up swan conversation. So last one, if your company was an animal, what would it be and why?
A giraffe.
Why?
It's a peaceful animal.
Awesome.
And it's a beautiful one too.
I love it.
Thank
Alina,
you.
thank you so much for joining us. Where can people check out ChiliPiper? Where can people interact with you? Let the audience know how they could find y'all.
I'm on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me, please mention Revenue Reimagined so that I know where it's coming from, and on a direct message. Otherwise, I don't see it. I respond to the direct messages on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there. And of course, I want to learn about what's going on with this, with the PLG motion. Otherwise, I will not be able to sleep. I will only sleep 2 hours if I don't know. So don't hesitate in reaching out.
I love it. Alina, thank you so much for joining us. It was a blast. Go check out Alina, check out ChiliPiper. Go provide feedback on ChiliCal. You will love what you see.